Just like that, another year is in the books, my friends, and it was a big one in the sports world. Historic individual performances, legendary upsets, inspiring comebacks, another team leaving Oakland. 2023 had it all. So before we turn the page to 2024, let's take a look back at the year that was. I'm Jonah, that's Levi, that's your boy Joey Cash, and that's Aiden, and here are your 23 biggest moments in sports from 2023. Our list begins in the octagon. At number 23, we've got the triumphant return of Jon Jones to the UFC. More than 3 years removed from his last fight, the 35-year-old former light heavyweight champion returned to the octagon as a heavyweight and proceeded to take home the belt in his first fight back, actually in his first round back. His guillotine choke got Cyril Gane to tap out just over 2 minutes into the fight, capping a stunning comeback for Jones and adding yet another major accomplishment to the legacy of the greatest, arguably the greatest fighter in UFC history. Aiden, I'll ask you, does this victory cement Jones as the greatest fighter in UFC history?
Yeah, the GOAT talk just got another leg of ammunition for when it comes to Jon Jones. I mean, just coming back like that and just dominating the way that he did. He's a different level fighter. He's a different level of excitement than you really see in the UFC, especially in the past few years. And I think it was really needed for the UFC this year, but GOAT chats, I think it's still debatable considering the doping scandals and all that stuff. Is like, what do you value for your GOAT? I mean, if you want to call Jon Jones the GOAT, absolutely, I feel no qualms about that. But if you want to go with GSP, I support that too. Just he's exemplary on and off, and I love both conversations there. I love both fighters, but Jon Jones GOAT it might be.
Fair enough. And was this the biggest moment of the year in the UFC?
I think it was the most important one because Izzy's loss was pretty crushing. I think the general UFC viewership, especially the casual viewership, loves Israel Adesanya, and that loss was a little tough to watch to Strickland. And I think Jon Jones having that to look back on this year, like that was the biggest moment of the year in UFC, and it was needed and celebrated this. So.
At number 22, and apologies for getting somber so quickly, but we said RIP to the Oakland A's, who will be relocating to Las Vegas following a November vote from Major League Baseball's owners. After years of cynical maneuvering from owner John Fisher, the billionaire finally got his wish, despite the very vocal objections of Oakland's fans, who yelled all season long for Fisher to sell the team. Their cries went unheard. The A's are moving to Vegas, and that caps the exodus of major pro sports teams from the Oakland area. The Warriors left in 2019, the Raiders bounced a year later, and now the A's are leaving too. A pretty devastating development for sports fans in the East Bay, eh, Cash?
Yeah, it's sad, man. They're good sports fans there. They just haven't been treated right by their various ownerships or whatever the case may be. And in the case of the A's, as you know, Jonah, as a baseball guy, like pitifully poor ownership, a dump of a stadium, a team that hasn't been worth watching or rooting for in a few years. What did you expect was going to happen, right? And there was a proud legacy there too when it came to baseball, like in the 70s, the 80s, some of those Moneyball teams at the turn of the century. But yeah, to your point, I mean, hey, the Raiders left twice. They didn't just leave once. The Warriors, once they became a big money kind of destination team, went to the brighter side of the Bay, then had the audacity to wear Oakland jerseys a couple years later. So who knows, maybe a few years from now, the Las Vegas A's will wear Oakland A's jerseys just to put that final twist of the knife in.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be heartening for baseball fans in the East Bay area.
Yeah, even if they don't wear the jerseys, though, they'll always have a Moneyball. Fantastic film. Fantastic film. You can't forget about them that way.
Yeah, I mean, note to any other franchise that's looking to relocate down the road, just make sure that you have a Hollywood A-list movie in your back pocket, then you can take off.
Coming in at number 21, we've got Connor McDavid taking home his 5th career Art Ross trophy with one of the most electrifying seasons hockey has ever seen. He finished 2023 with 153 points, which was the most productive season not only this century, but the 15th most productive season in NHL history. The only dudes to put up more points in a season, Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Steve Yzerman. Look, I think we knew before 2023 that Connor McDavid was an upper echelon, inner circle type talent, generational type talent. But I think what 2023 cemented is that when it's all said and done for him, he's going to be mentioned in the same breath as those guys, as a Gretzky, as Lemieux. Levi, what's your take on that?
Absolutely, and let's not forget, this season he led the league in goals. He led the league in goals. He had 64 goals, I believe. Only 5 players have ever led the league in goals and assists, so they wanted him to shoot more. They wanted him to take more, goal opportunities and not pass as much. It's exactly what he did. And it's incredible to see. My question now is how much better can he get? Can he go above 153 points again?
That's the question. Is Wayne Gretzky's single-season points record actually in jeopardy via Connor McDavid?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Unless goalies are going to start letting slap shots in from the blue line on breakaways, I don't think that record's ever falling. But I do think it's insane that you can crack 150 points in the modern era where scoring is at a premium. Like, it's not what it used to be. So to crack 150 in the modern era, I think is absolutely nuts. Not taking away from anything Gretzky or Lemieux did, obviously, but I didn't think we'd ever see this in our lifetime.
Yeah, straightforward. I just think it's hard to imagine a player being better than Connor McDavid right now. Like, how could you possibly be better than that? Like, what skill could you have? And so I think we might have just seen his peak, but who knows? He might have more to show us.
Yeah, what a peak it was. Like, Sidney Crosby never threatened 150 points. Alexander Ovechkin never threatened 150 points. This is anachronistic stuff. This is stuff we haven't seen since, like you said, a different era of hockey, and it's just been fun to watch. At number 20, we've got Novak Djokovic further cementing his GOAT case by claiming his record-breaking 7th ATP Finals title. That gave him one more than Roger Federer for the record. Djokovic's performance at the ATP Finals kicked off a record-extending 400th week as the world number one, and his victory bookended arguably the most impressive season of his singular career. He had 3 Grand Slam titles in 2023, which pushed his record total to 24, further distinguishing him from Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. Was this the best season of Djokovic's career, Cash?
Forget the best season of Djokovic's career. This might have been the best season in tennis history. And honestly, you can make the argument that it was one of the best years, if not the best year, that any athlete, at least in an individual sport, has ever had. I mean, the guy came within one major of winning the entire Grand Slam, the Joker Slam, if you will, and he lost in the final of that one. And like, the fact that he's doing this in his mid-30s in what was often known as a young man's game. I know Rafa, I know Federer also excelled into their 30s, but I don't remember them dominating like this in their mid-30s. The fact that he is still at the top of his game, I mean, when's he going to slow down?
He truly said, I'm going to become the Joker in 2023. And he's winning on surfaces that aren't traditionally his best. Like, there seemingly is no limit to his excellence. And at this point, we thought 24 was maybe unreachable. Now it seems like, how many could he win? 30?
I mean, he literally just won 3 of the 4 this year. And again, he lost in the final in the other one. So I have a hard time believing it's going to go from 3, almost 4 to now, he's not winning again. He's going to win at least one more this year, probably. Who knows how many more in the years to come.
Yeah, and in the words of LeBron James, not 1, not 2, not 3. I mean, with no Rafa and no Federer, who knows? Sky's the limits for this guy. He's got time. He's got time. He's got one major competitor right now in Alcaraz. And unless somebody really breaks out in the next couple of years, like Djokovic could really make that number unreachable.
So he's going to win 2 then, because the big 3 Heat won 2.
There you go.
There you go.
Coming in at number 19, we've got Georgia slaughtering TCU in the CFP final to win a 2nd straight national championship and cap a perfect 15-0 season. It was the largest margin of victory ever in a title game, the largest in a bowl game in FBS history, 6 touchdowns for Georgia QB Stetson Bennett. I mean, you just can't say enough about how dominant of a performance this was from arguably the most dominant college football team ever.
Yeah, I mean, high standard, but Georgia was just that good this year. It was weird because I think both semifinals games were better than the finals game, as weird as that is to say. But yeah, I mean, my question is how much of it this season was Georgia being so dominant and the rest of the field not being that great?
Yeah, and they want to make it even bigger. They want to make this playoff.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Guys are already opting out of bowl games, right? And you're getting uncompetitive playoff bowl games. And I think what they need is, like, they're going to have these top heavy teams because the Georgias of the world, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, they're going to be routinely unbelievable. And then you're going to get the team in a lower level conference that goes undefeated, and you're going to throw them in the first round of the college football playoff quarterfinal against a Georgia, and TCU will look like that will look like a competitive contest when you get that one going up.
Yeah, good luck to those teams. I mean, that Georgia team won by an average margin of victory of almost 40 points last year. So if they want to expand that pool and, welcome some smaller schools against Titans like that, good luck to them.
Yeah, time to set some records.
At number 18, we've got Max Verstappen making history on the track, becoming the first F1 driver ever to win 10 consecutive races. His victory at the Italian Grand Prix in September thrust him past Sebastian Vettel, whose previous F1 record of 9 consecutive wins had stood since 2013. Aiden, maybe you can put it into perspective for more casual auto racing fans. How unbelievable is it for a driver to win 10 straight races?
Remember when the Golden State Warriors won 73 games? Imagine they just went on and just absolutely dominated the postseason as well and won their rings there. This was ridiculous what we saw from Verstappen. If you were expecting a competitive F1 field after that fantastic 2021 season when it all came down to that final race, it hasn't been that. It has been pure Red Bull dominance. People thought Mercedes dominated the field for pretty much a decade, and they did. This is different. What Verstappen is doing right now is just completely different, and I can't even imagine how it could get better at this point. It's wrapped up. It's done. It's been done since the start of October, and I'm sure by 3 months into next year's season, it'll probably look pretty similar.
Yeah, I remember being a kid and it feeling unfair that Michael Schumacher dominated the way he did, and Verstappen shattered Schumacher's records. It's not even a fair fight.
Well, and that's the thing is that, he's only 26, and this was, a legacy season in its own right, but he's moved into a tie for third place all-time in terms of Grand Prix victories. Again, he's still in his mid-20s. Does he have a chance at the all-time Grand Prix victory title?
It depends on how long he stays at Red Bull and how long Red Bull keeps investing in their cars. Because right now, they are the top of everything right now. They're top of the line in terms of their team, their mechanics, and they've got the top driver. Whether or not he retains this pace relies on how much Red Bull wants to continue to invest in it, because you see once you start winning year after year, they get a little bit more complacent maybe, but there's also, when you win year after year, you kind of want to keep it going and you want to set the records, right?
Yeah.
There's more records to be broken, and right now he's on track to do it.
Coming in at number 17, we've got Ronald Acuna Jr.'s unprecedented MVP season. Big Ron became the first player in history to hit 40-plus homers and steal 70-plus bases in the same season. As a matter of fact, he also became the first player in history to go 40-60 or 40-50. Meanwhile, he also led the majors in hits, runs, and on-base percentage en route to a unanimous MVP selection, and this was hands down one of the most unbelievable individual seasons in the history of the game. I feel like it actually got overshadowed a little bit, which is crazy to say because Shohei Ohtani is Shohei Ohtani, but hands down, you're probably not going to see another player go 40-70 for a very, very long time if it ever happens again.
Yeah, I had him on my fantasy team last year, and that's just the way I think these things go, right? Is these guys have these crazy years, but what we're starting to see is these numbers are starting to replicate themselves, kind of across a lot of sports. You're seeing more guys. You see guys get on pace for 60 home runs a little bit more frequently since it doesn't happen. Now it feels like it could happen again. But this 40-70 thing, I can't imagine somebody doing that again. Maybe it happens. Maybe they add an extra foot on each side for these bases. But it was incredible what Acuna did this year.
I will add too, the product that baseball created this season with the rule changes. If you took Ronald Acuna and what he did and just looked at all of the changes they made, it's the perfect example of what baseball could be. And I'm not saying everyone can be Ronald Acuna, because no one can be Ronald Acuna right now, but he was electric, and this is exactly what we need for baseball, just way more players like this.
At number 16, we've got Erling Haaland's historic debut season with Manchester City, in which he set a new Premier League record for goals in a season with 36. But that was just one of the myriad records the Norwegian superstar set in 2023. He also established a new record for goals by a Premier League player across all competitions with 52, and he single-handedly outscored multiple Premier League teams. Aiden, how did this guy not win the Ballon d'Or?
This guy's a robot. He scores so many goals. He wins the Champions League, the Premier League, the FA Cup. When you look at Manchester City from last season, the 2021-22, no player scored more than 15. So he can't just be a product of this Pep Guardiola system. He's fantastic. He's scoring lots of goals. But when you compare him to Messi winning the World Cup, there's the star factor, there's the storybook factor there. So I understand why they gave it to Messi, but Haaland had one heck of a case.
Yeah, he did. And look, I don't want to take anything away from what was the greatest season by a striker, by a finisher, maybe we'll ever see. But I do want to say, and it's something one of my friends pointed out, is that if you wanted to show Haaland to someone that doesn't watch soccer and maybe wanted to say hey, this is the guy that's breaking all the records, and then you go show them the highlights and it's oh, that was a rebound. That's a tap in. Yeah. That's tap in. And then they might look at you being well, this is the guy that's setting, but he actually is incredible. Don't just go by the highlights.
It might be the most uninspiring highlight reel of all time, but it's a long highlight reel because he scores all the time. It's ridiculous how many times he puts his ball in the net, and he's doing it again this season. And who knows how far he'll get at this point. If he stays at City with this Pep team, with guys like De Bruyne giving him the ball, it's going to be crazy.
They don't ask how. They ask how many. Coming in at number 15, we've got an epic March Madness moment. Little known Fairleigh Dickinson stunning number 1 ranked Purdue in the first round of the 2023 tournament. The 16th seeded Knights were 23.5-point underdogs against the top ranked Boilermakers, and then the madness ensued. The Knights played a tight game, held on to a 1-point lead at halftime, and ended up closing out a 5-point victory over one of the best teams in the country. Quick question, any of you guys know where Fairleigh Dickinson is?
Fairleigh, Arkansas?
It's not Arkansas. No, it's New Jersey, by the way. And I mean, this is why they play the tournament, right? Just the second time in tournament history that a 16 seed defeated a number 1 seed. What else can you say?
Yeah, not much else. And this game was special because UMBC did it, obviously, back to Virginia in 2017. This just felt more like a 16 seed that belonged in the tournament because we had never seen it before then. Now we've seen it, and they had all the schemes drawn up for Purdue. Smallest team in the country, by the way, against the biggest man in the country and the best basketball player in the nation, and they still figured him out. It was a perfect game plan. They were trapping. They were doing everything that they needed to do, and I think we might start to see this happening more down the road. I think teams can figure these high seeds out a lot more frequently.
Who, out of curiosity, had their bracket busted by this upset?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all did. Like, if you didn't, then I feel like you don't watch college ball if you actually pick the 16. You're just doing it for fun, right? In which case, I guess.
Gotta
kudos.
start using AI to pick my brackets.
Yeah.
Whatever I've been doing hasn't been working, so.
Yeah.
At number 14, and sticking with college hoops, who could forget that epic championship throwdown between LSU and Iowa in the women's NCAA tournament final? Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark put on an absolute show that night, and their star power compelled a record number of viewers to tune in to see the Tigers take home the championship. Levi, was this a watershed moment for women's college basketball and more broadly, women's basketball?
Without a question, absolutely. This is the most viewed women's basketball game ever. I think they only had 4 million less viewers than the men's championship game. This was awesome to see, and to be honest, it just makes me that much more excited for future women's tournaments. Caitlin Clark pulling from the logo, something that we really haven't seen in women's basketball before. Angel Reese showing off her personality. This was awesome, and yeah, I was super happy with it.
Yeah, and I think what was cool about it is that it wasn't just a sports moment, it was a cultural moment. And you could see it in the way the next day it was leading sportscast for sure, which in and of itself is cool to see the women's game leading a sportscast the next day, leading the talk shows, the debate shows. But it was also on newscasts around North America. It was on Entertainment Tonight. Like, it became a moment, and it really felt like a bit of a cultural touchstone for the women's game and for women's sports in general, not just at the collegiate level.
Yeah, to me, when you look back at 2023 March Madness, that's the one that's going to stick out to me. There's a reason we have this over the Fairleigh Dickinson upset over Purdue. Like, this was just a bigger moment than anything we saw in the men's tournament, and I think it was a fantastic set for women's basketball, women's college basketball, and women's sports in general.
Coming in at number 13, we've got Tom Brady, the 7-time Super Bowl champion and undisputed GOAT, calling it quits for a second and seemingly final time. The writing may have been on the wall a bit following a ho-hum 2022 campaign in Tampa Bay, but Brady's retirement in February at the age of 45 and after 23 seasons in the NFL was nevertheless a historic moment in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, with no question. I mean, best football player of all time. But I'll say, it was a bit of a weird exit considering how great of a career, how storied of a career he's had, because he tried to retire the season before, he came back, he did this again. I think everyone kind of sat for a second and were like, are you really going to do this? And I mean, the last game he played, he got crushed in the playoffs. So obviously, it's sad to see the best football player go, but yeah, I was a little bit underwhelmed with his departure.
Yeah, you know how weird of a moment it was? It's what, number 12, 13? What are we at here? Like,
go.
The first time he retired, like Tom Brady retiring would usually crack the top 10, the top 5 would be close to number 1. The fact it's like here in the teens or wherever we are shows you how weird of a moment it is and how it was like, okay, this is so last year. Like, this isn't a 2022 list, you know, it's 2023.
For sure, but I will give him credit because I think he's transitioned very seamlessly into old manness, because less than a year removed from retiring, he's already bemoaning the current state of the NFL. He's like, oh, there's so much mediocrity in the game today. It's like, dude, you were playing like 8 months ago, but you know, who am I to impugn his opinions? He's the GOAT, I'm just a guy, and you know, even though it was the second time that he called it quits, still a big moment in the history of football. Coming in at number 12, we've got a major breakthrough in men's tennis. 20-year-old Carlos Alcaraz defeating Novak Djokovic in the men's finals at Wimbledon. It may be premature to call it a changing of the guard moment because Djokovic, as we mentioned earlier, is still crushing it at the age of 36, but it was nevertheless a huge coming out party for a player widely considered to be the next potential legend in men's tennis. Alcaraz's thrilling 5-set victory over Djokovic, on grass no less, gave him 2 Grand Slam titles for his young career and made him the first player in men's tennis not named Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, or Andy Murray in Alcaraz's lifetime to win Wimbledon. Cash, how big was this for the sport of men's tennis?
I mean, you said it, right? Like, this maybe wasn't a full changing of the guard because Djokovic is very much still on guard, but I think at the very least, this cemented Alcaraz as the next one, the guy who's going to take the mantle from Djokovic, who took it from Federer, Nadal, and Murray, and bring it into the next era, right? Like, to have multiple Grand Slams at his age, to get the second one by beating Djokovic, kept him from the Joker Slam, doing it at the All England Club, like, this guy's made for the moment. He's very much the guy.
He's 20, and I mean, the tennis community has been just begging for somebody like this to emerge, because as great as it was to watch Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic dominate this sport for my entire life, I've been eager to see somebody else challenge these guys, because when you have a challenger, it brings up the level of everyone else's game. And hopefully somebody else from this generation can join Alcaraz. But right now, he looks like the guy that is going to lead this next generation. And if nobody else joins him, it could be some just utter dominance because he's incredible.
Yeah, he's built different, and Djokovic himself said it after that final at Wimbledon. He said, "I've never played a player like this before," and that's saying a lot because he spent the bulk of his career playing against some of the most celebrated tennis players that have ever lived. So, like you guys, I'm really fascinated to see, is he going to threaten 24 Grand Slam titles for his career? Who knows, but it seems like if anyone in the current game is going to do it, it's going to be Alcaraz. Coming in at number 11, we got the Hollywood ending to the most captivating World Baseball Classic ever. With the championship on the line and Team USA down to their final out, Mike Trout stepped into the box against none other than his fellow Angels teammate and fellow generational talent, Shohei Ohtani. What ensued was one of the most dramatic and unforgettable at-bats in baseball history. Not WBC history, baseball history. Check it out.
Two from Ohtani. He throws. Trout strikes out swinging. Ohtani and Japan celebrate a World Baseball Classic championship.
Chills. Man, chills. I feel like if you were going to show a non-baseball fan one at-bat from the year 2023 to galvanize them into becoming a baseball fan, it wouldn't be anything from the 2023 MLB season. It would be that at-bat of the most sensational player, arguably in the history of the game, in Shohei Ohtani, striking out Mike Trout to win a championship for Team Japan. And I think one other thing that moment illustrated was that this tournament is clearly extremely meaningful to those participating in it and to an international audience that may not watch Major League Baseball as closely as a North American audience, but they take great pleasure, obviously, in seeing their countrymen represent them at this international tournament.
The thing that comes to mind when I watch this clip is best on best. That's what everyone talks about wanting from international tournaments that involve pro players, right, that play elsewhere. You want best on best in that tournament. The World Baseball Classic not only brought us the best on best for the overall tournament, but it ended with the 2 best baseballing nations and the 2 best players of their generation, if not longer, matching up in an at-bat to decide it. You literally could not script this any better.
No, that's why my point is this might be one of the best at-bats ever in the history of baseball. If you were to handcraft, someone came down and said, listen, put together your dream at-bat, 1-run ball game, full count, the best player in baseball against the other best player in baseball. They're also teammates, by the way, to decide the entire World Baseball Classic. It doesn't get better than that.
I just think in terms of sporting moments over the last honestly decade, for me, the 2 biggest matchups that have happened in a 6-month span between France and Argentina and then this World Baseball Classic, it was absolutely incredible. And just it was a story. It was like a storybook. It was a movie moment. You couldn't have asked for anything more. And I'm sure everyone opposed to the World Baseball Classic was watching that and being like, I take it back. Nobody watched that and was like, we don't need this. I don't want to see. Everyone loved it, and I can't wait to see another edition of it.
Everyone except for Mike Trout.
Yeah.
But who's sitting on a 3-2 sweeper? Coming in at number 10, we've got the Denver Nuggets making history with their first ever NBA championship. After flirting with greatness for several years, Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray finally got the Nuggets to basketball's mountaintop. And they didn't just win, they flat out dominated. Throughout their playoff run, the Nuggets never once trailed in a series and either swept or won in 5 games in 3 of their first 4 matchups. Long time coming, eh, Cash?
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think it's always great when an NBA team wins for the first time because the NBA is the most championship exclusive league. And even in what's been kind of an unprecedented run of parity the last half decade, it's still the most championship exclusive league. So seeing a new team win it is always a good story. And also the way the Nuggets came up is a good story. Like NBA fans, I don't agree with them all the time, but I get why some complain about the way some teams are built and super teams and blah, blah, blah. Here was this Nuggets team that was built, drafted together mostly, came up together, took their lumps together, grew every year. They had a coach in Michael Malone that grew with his team year by year, a front office that I think really struck a nice balance between patience and aggressiveness when they traded for Aaron Gordon a couple years ago. You had Jamal Murray, the comeback story after the injury. Just all of it, I think, really coalesced into a great story. And then, yeah, what more can you say about Nikola Jokic? I mean, for my money, he's going on what should be a 4th straight MVP in the regular season, let alone what he did in the finals. And then even if you're just talking about as a playoff duo, we have to start putting Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray in some all-time conversations. They have won 7 of 9 playoff series together. They have eliminated a team with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on it back in the day, rallying back from 3-1 down. They ran a team with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker off the court. They swept a team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis this year. Like, they're an all-time duo. This was an all-time fun team. Jokic is an all-time talent. Great story for the NBA.
And Jokic might be one of my favorite players off the court now because I think he's just so hilarious and so unique he's just not this massive personality of he's just straight up there to play ball and just chill, have a good time. I love it, and I love Jamal Murray and what he did for Canadian basketball last year as well.
I think the only person who wasn't fully enchanted by the Nuggets championship run was Nikola Jokic, who had to work a few extra weeks, but ultimately I don't think he's too disappointed about the result. Coming in at number 9, we've got the seismic merger between the PGA and its formerly bitter rival, LIV Golf. Pro Golf's 2 powers have been squabbling ever since the controversial Saudi-backed LIV Tour was founded in 2021, and relations grew increasingly strained as the breakaway LIV Tour started poaching more and more talent from the PGA. The beef was real. Invective, lawsuits, suspensions, reputations were tarnished. This was war. And then, shockingly, the two decided in June to join forces, announcing a merger agreement that would effectively restore the long-standing monopoly of pro golf. A lot of people bristled at this move on the PGA's part. Aiden, I'll ask you, did this destroy the credibility or the image of the PGA in your mind?
It definitely destroyed the image I had of Jay Monahan, the commissioner, because this is a guy that invoked the memories of 9/11 to downplay LIV Golf, and this is an organization that supported and begged basically Tiger and Rory, guys who have carried them for better parts of 2 decades, to turn down billions of dollars to join LIV, and then when it's in it for them, when it's finally in their interests, they'll take their money, they'll take their cut. And it doesn't fix any of the issues they had with their lower level golfers, those guys that don't win, getting paid. Doesn't fix anything like that. Helps the guys at the top, and it helps the guys making the decisions. And I think Jay Monahan and basically everyone involved in that decision has lost a lot of credibility and a lot of respect around the public and also the people involved in the tour.
At number 8, we've got the official arrival of basketball's most hyped prospect since at least LeBron James, and arguably the most hyped prospect in the history of pro sports in Victor Wembanyama. After months of feverish anticipation over which lucky team would land the first overall pick in the 2023 draft and the right to select the 7'4" French unicorn, it was the San Antonio Spurs that won the lottery, a development that sent the Alamo City into a frenzy, and ultimately, the Spurs' selection of Wemby, whose career is off to an impressive start, could well shape the landscape of the NBA for the next decade and a half, Cash?
If he stays healthy, I don't see why not. I mean, his combination of size and skills is literally unprecedented. Even in an era of unicorns, and that term gets thrown around a lot, he is a unicorn among unicorns. I mean, it tells you something when a very buttoned-up, straight-laced reporter like Adrian Wojnarowski goes out on a limb and says this guy might be the greatest prospect in the history of team sports. And I think what added to it feeling like a moment when he arrived, and adding to the anticipation was the fact that, okay, yeah, he's got this freakish size, 7'4", practically an 8-foot wingspan, but then also the foreign factor, right? He didn't play stateside. You had to watch his team in Europe, like if you had a EuroLeague pass or something like that on the down low, or when they played the G League Ignite team. So I think that all kind of added to this novelty factor of him, that when he finally arrived, let alone when he actually stepped foot on an NBA court, it was like, oh, he's real. He's here. Like, we can watch this guy now. And yeah, there's not many prospects in our lifetime that we will see have this much hype and anticipation coming into a pro league.
And yeah, talking about like the most hyped prospect, people say he was the most hyped since LeBron James. That's completely valid. We've never seen a basketball player like this, and I think that's where all that hype was coming from, because I was so excited, and I know everyone else was, to just see how his game would translate. He's 7'4", he can dribble, he can shoot, he can do everything, and the NBA has really never seen it. So all the hype was justified, and I think he's lived up to it for the most part so far.
Coming in at number 7, we've got the emergence of Coach Prime and the transformation of not only the Colorado Buffaloes football program, but a tectonic shift within college football. Look, we've seen cult of personality coaches have success in the college game before, but I don't think we've ever seen a coach with Sanders' combination of star power, on-field credibility, marketing savvy, motivational acumen. Simply put, Deion Sanders is doing things that no coach has really done before, and it's not just his aggressive use of the transfer portal. He's beta testing almost a new model of college coaches, part recruiter, part tactician, part marketer, and his singular approach has boosted the profile of not just the Buffaloes beyond their wildest dreams, but it's also shifted attitudes, Aiden, about what a college coach can and should be almost.
Yeah, it's up for debate whether or not this is what you should look for in a college coach, but what is not, like what's undeniable is that he made a seismic impact on the NCAA this year. What he was on and off the field was it was a marvel. It was something to watch, and it gave you something to watch on a bad team that made them one of the most entertaining teams in the country through the first basically half of the season. Once people realized how bad they were, it was like people started to kind of tune it out. But there was like 2-3 weeks in, and everyone's like, yo, Colorado, like crazy national championship contenders, like Shedeur Sanders, Heisman, and then they went and got pumped by Oregon, and Dan Lanning basically called him out, right? Dan Lanning goes in, he's like, we do this for wins, not for clicks, but he did it on video, which is a little, but that's the reality of what we're seeing. All this behind the scenes coverage, we see it in all these sports now, all these documentaries of every team and stuff like that. Every team has cameras. So if you're gonna have cameras, use them. Because if you have prime time on your cameras, you're gonna get more fandom. You're gonna get more people watching your games. You're gonna get more people putting money into your program. And you know where that takes you, and that's where it's taking the Colorado Buffaloes.
Imagine if someone had told you a couple of years ago that the University of Colorado football team's head coach is going to get parodied on Saturday Night Live. That goes to show you the level of clout that Deion Sanders brought to the Buffaloes.
I didn't even know the University of Colorado had a football team. I didn't even know there was a University of Colorado. So that itself is a testament to what Coach Prime has accomplished in his short time there. And you better believe that other schools throughout college football are taking notice of what having someone like Coach Prime can do for your program. And you better believe that he's establishing a blueprint right now for other schools to follow. Coming in at number 6, we've got Patrick Mahomes guiding the Chiefs to a victory in Super Bowl 57. It was an unforgettable game in its own right, but it was also ultimately a legacy game for Mahomes, who engineered a game-winning drive with just over 5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter and ultimately became the first player in NFL history with multiple MVPs and Super Bowl MVPs before turning 28. It's obviously premature to put his name in the GOAT conversation at this point, but if there's anyone in the game today who could threaten the legacy of a Tom Brady, it's got to be Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the first Super Bowl obviously was big for him. The second Super Bowl, that's when you started to get in that upper echelon. You know, you get that second one under your belt, suddenly the rest seem a little bit more easy to attain. So yeah, absolutely. And I think, I don't know who else you'd look to right now in terms of MVPs, in terms of Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes is the clear-cut guy, if any, to threaten the GOAT conversation that has Tom Brady in it right now. So absolutely, this game was huge for his legacy. This game was also just huge for Super Bowls. I think we had a couple snooze fests. It's been a while, maybe since the Patriots came back against the Falcons, that we had a really, really entertaining game. So it was really nice to see these two teams duke it out and put up 70-plus points.
The thing for me is when you look at Brady's tenure in the NFL, there was always a battle over who was the best quarterback in the league, right? There was Peyton Manning shouts, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, all these other guys who kind of had that mantle for a bit. it feels like it's just Mahomes and everybody else. It's Mahomes, then there's another tier of guys, and then there's the rest of the league. But it feels like there's no one else that's kind of even there. It feels like if you swapped him with the Jalen Hurts, like just team for team, the damage he could do with weapons like Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown and stuff like that. But he does it with these guys. Like, he lost Tyreek Hill and he didn't skip a beat, right? He goes on and wins a bowl, and he's off to another great year this year. Maybe it isn't the best, but he's also going into that Brady territory now of like, we just need to get there and we'll figure it out in the playoffs. We'll win it. They're serious. They're a serious team. He and Andy Reid have really cooked up something special in KC.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the unfortunate case of Ja Morant, who brandished a gun on Instagram Live not once but twice, earning himself a pair of suspensions and effectively casting a pall over his once extremely promising career. This was a guy who was primed to be potentially one of the faces of the NBA, and now his reputation is severely tarnished. Cash, would you say it's irreparably tarnished?
Yeah, in my mind it is, because we're talking about him being suspended multiple times for brandishing a gun on social media multiple times. And that's not even the tip of the iceberg of what Ja's 2023 was. There was also the case, which is currently a lawsuit right now. He's claiming self-defense, in which he allegedly assaulted a teenager. There was the incident where members of the Pacers organization alleged that coming from a vehicle that Ja was in with some of his acquaintances, a red laser was pointed on them and that they felt they were in grave danger. There was an allegation that Ja and a large group of individuals showed up to kind of threaten a mall security guard who had gotten into some sort of dispute with Ja's mom. Like, it goes on and on and on. There was a tweet last year where he threatened, or seemingly threatened, someone who was tweeting criticism at him by asking if that guy wants to know, it's telling him it's free to find out how hollows feel, which, again, obviously everything's alleged here, but seems to be a reference to hollow point bullets. Like, he got suspended for the most serious of the offenses, I guess, in terms of optics, but there was a long list here of troubling behavior that, you know, has to start making you think about this guy off of a basketball court, not just what it's doing to his basketball career. And it really is a shame.
Yeah, the thing with this is the whole Ja saga. The first time he went Instagram Live, big deal. Everyone made huge headlines, shook the league up. And to find out that he did it again, it's just, at some point you gotta learn your lesson. Obviously, I think the 25-game suspension was definitely justified. I think he's gonna work hard to get his reputation back, but you're right. I don't know if he's gonna get all the way back.
Coming in at number 4, we've got the trailer game, that fateful Week 3 showdown between the Chiefs and Bears at Arrowhead Stadium when it was all but confirmed that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift were an item. The rumors had been percolating for a while, and they were finally substantiated when Swift was spotted hobnobbing in Kelce's suite at Arrowhead and was then seen leaving the stadium with the star tight end. The internet lost its mind over this burgeoning romance, and Swift soon became the de facto queen of the NFL. The league masterfully leveraged Swift as a marketing tool. Women across every age cohort started paying attention to the NFL like never before, and frankly, nobody made a bigger splash in the football world in 2023 than T Swift. Would you not agree, Aiden?
3 things I'll take away from this. The first one is my girlfriend will watch football with me now sometimes. Fantastic. Second one, I got tickets to Taylor Swift, so I'm fired up for that. And I'm fired up for all this notoriety because I just feel like that concert's gonna be a banger. But 3, I'm really over it. It's been going on for way too long now. I don't need to see it. I feel like it's really started to tone itself down, but nobody was a bigger fan of this than the NFL. Like, this was so big for them. Like, you get celebrities in the stands, you get big people to come into sporting events all the time, but Taylor Swift attracts a whole other audience for the NFL that they've never been able to reach before. And so they went all out to use that as a marketing tool. And to be frank, it worked. I mean, I just said it, like, my girlfriend watched football with me. Like, that doesn't happen very often. So looking at it, I'm kind of over it. But it was definitely probably the greatest thing that could have happened to the NFL this year.
So basically what Aiden's saying is that when it comes to this topic in 2024, he wants to shake it off.
Oh.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Lionel Messi's groundbreaking move to Inter Miami of Major League Soccer. Yes, MLS had a handful of big-name European stars join its ranks in the past, but never before has a player of Messi's stature come to the States, because there's never been a player of Messi's stature before. Everybody wanted him after his contract with PSG expired, including one Saudi Arabian club that offered him more than $1 billion, but Messi turned down that bag to head to America, and his arrival overnight afforded MLS a previously unimaginable level of relevance and legitimacy. And he didn't waste time either endearing himself to the stateside fans, netting a magisterial game winner in his Miami debut. Yes, I said magisterial. Cash, can you sort of sum it up for us? How significant was this move of Messi to America?
If I was answering that question honestly, no, I can't put it into words, but I'll try. It's unbelievable that Leo Messi came to the States, came to MLS. And you don't have to be a soccer fan, a football fan. I'm telling you, he's the biggest star in the most popular sport in the world, and he's arguably the greatest player to ever play in that sport. And he turned down Saudi money, not to go to another European league or team, to come to the MLS, okay? And yeah, you can say when David Beckham came to LA back in the day, that was huge from a celebrity standpoint, and it was, and he blazed the trail for future guys to come from Europe and South America and wherever. But from a footballing perspective, Becks was pretty washed at that point, right? And even if you go all the way back to the mid-70s when Pele came to play for the New York Cosmos before the MLS existed, he was coming off a 10-goal season in Brazil and was already retired from international duty. Messi is literally the reigning Ballon d'Or winner and was less than a year removed from winning the World Cup. And he came to a league where you can credibly say Sebastian Giovinco was probably the greatest player ever in that league. And I say that somewhat mockingly, and that's as an Italian, okay? So that tells you all you need to know. He was a bench player in Europe and then was probably the best player MLS ever saw. And Messi, who, yeah, he's in his mid-30s, but is still very much the top of the game, came to the MLS. It's honestly unbelievable.
And you got to look at it also in an era where everybody's taking like Saudi money, like Live Golf. You've got all these like Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi's biggest rival, goes to Saudi. All these other players going to Saudi. He goes to the MLS and he probably takes one of the most interesting and unique contracts. I still don't think anybody really knows what that contract actually entails, but there's a reason that not like 2 weeks, like the MLS season isn't even done, and there's already a documentary about Messi coming to the MLS. It's that big of a deal. They knew how serious it was going to be to have a guy of this stature playing in North America. This is bigger than LeBron James going to play basketball in Europe. It just straight up is bigger just because of the platform and the media coverage in North America, as well as the recognition that Messi has around the world. There's so many people that care about Messi from literally every continent. And he is now playing in North America, and it's shattering anything that we've ever seen in the MLS, and it's incredible to watch.
I can actually tell you exactly what his contract entails. He's going to get paid.
Okay, there you go.
At number 2, we've got the inspiring case of Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills safety who went into cardiac arrest after taking a hit to the chest during a game last January. It was a horrific scene, and it actually led the Bills and Bengals to call off their Monday Night Football matchup. Thankfully, however, the harrowing ordeal did not end in tragedy. Hamlin was resuscitated on the field, went through an extensive recovery process, and less than a year later, he was back on the field for the Bills. And get this, in their first game after Hamlin's injury, after honoring their teammate in a pregame ceremony, the Bills amazingly took the opening kickoff back to the house for a TD. It was as if it was a sign from the football gods that everything was going to be okay. Still, a harrowing ordeal. It was truly one of those you remember exactly where you were at the time moments. Levi, where were you at the time when Damar Hamlin went down?
Yeah, this is one of those that kind of the world of sports stops, halts for a second. I remember I was actually up north skiing in Quebec with my family. I started getting the Adam Schefter notifications. You kind of tune in, see what's happening, and everything stopped. I dropped everything. I was laser focused on that broadcast. And instantly, you just come to your senses and you're like, oh my God, like this guy has to make it. Like you start praying, and so thankful that he made it out. Truly though, I think it's something that not only brought the world of football together, brought the world of sports together. And for him to be able to strap the pads up less than a year later is insane to me, and so much courage. Credit to him for everything that he's done and overcoming this injury. Truly, truly an inspiring moment.
And finally, at number 1, our biggest sports moment of 2023, we've got the King taking his rightful place as basketball's all-time leading scorer. In his 20th NBA season, LeBron James added basketball's most hallowed all-time record to his laundry list of accomplishments, surpassing fellow Lakers legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who had held on to the seemingly unbreakable record for almost 4 decades. Cash, I think of that as LeBron aged into his year 17, year 18, year 19 seasons without showing any symptoms of decline. We all thought it was maybe inevitable that he would take this record, but that still doesn't diminish its momentousness at all. Do you think anyone now could surpass LeBron?
I mean, it's unlikely because he's still adding to it and he's still playing at a level where he should be able to tack on thousands of points onto this. And Kareem's record in and of itself already seemed unbreakable. So then when you consider whatever final number LeBron's going to get to, and it's just like what more can you say about LeBron James? He broke Kareem's seemingly unbreakable record while averaging nearly 29 points per game in his 20th season. Like, you know, we talked about Wemby earlier, right? Being maybe the greatest prospect in history of team sports, probably the greatest prospect since LeBron. LeBron James was the most hyped prospect of the modern sports era, and he shattered every expectation of him.
There you have it, our 23 biggest moments in sports from 2023. What did we miss? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Once again, that's Aiden, that's Cash, that's Levi, I'm Jonah. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in 2024.